No,
the
it's
blackmail.
All right.
Just can't be afraid, man. Can't be afraid.
I'm terrified. All right, countdown. 5, 4, 3. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Modern Gamer Podcast. I am your unofficial host, Jeffrey Jewell, aka the Green Ranger, aka the writer of Backlog Mania, and I'm here with Joe McBride.
Hello.
Where you say hello. There you go, Joe. And here with Mr. Stephen Wall.
Hey.
Cool.
Darth Swall.
Darth Swall, aka Darth Swall, aka owner of Modern Gamer.
AKA Darth Swall, aka the bearded one, aka goes to the gyms in real life versus Joe going to Pokemon gyms. I'm gonna keep saying that joke until
I was gonna say that's
people laugh and or
games.
Better the second time.
Yeah, and or comment on the YouTube channel saying "LOL." We love the joke, Jeff. You don't have to do it anymore, and then I won't do it anymore. I'll resign to a new joke.
I want people to go, where was the gym joke at the beginning?
Yeah.
In episode 3. What the hell?
Yeah. You got to go to the well. You got to go with what you know. And you got to go with what works. And if it makes Joe sigh and or groan and or furrow his brow, then I know I did my job. So this is episode 2 of the Modern Gamer Podcast. So if you watched us before and or listened to us before, thank you for coming back. That means that you didn't get sick of us yet. So unlike our wives and girlfriends who probably are real tired of us during quarantine, she's not there, Joe. Don't worry about it. So thank you guys for coming back. This is episode 2. We have a couple topics we want to discuss and hopefully get some engagement with you. Before we do that, if you want to find the podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Modern Gamer USA. Steve?
Yeah, so Modern Gamer USA is all of our social tags. So Twitter, Instagram, you can find us at Modern Gamer USA. If you go to moderngamer.com, you can find all of our information on the site, as well as a link over to our podcast on on Anchor, on YouTube, on basically anywhere that you want to listen to podcasts.
So if you listen to, I had to explain to Steve what Stitcher was last time.
Yes,
so if you are a Stitcher user, Modern Gamer Podcast is on Stitcher. So you can thank me for that because Steve didn't know. You can find us on all the major podcast outlets as well as YouTube, where you can see our mediocre faces if you so desire to do so. So
and that sweet Backlog Vania t-shirt.
And that sweet Backlog Vania. I figured Joe was going to wear his, so I didn't wear mine. Just to make sure that we weren't, super matchy.
Just gotta be twinsies, man.
You thought about
I'm still waiting for the Modern Gamer shirt. Like I gotta get the Modern Gamer shirt and or a hat. Dude, I'll rock that shit. I've been waiting to wear them during my Zoom meetings at work, just because I want to rep it. And the one time somebody asks, like, "Oh man, what's Modern Gamer?" I can be like, "Glad you asked. Let me tell you a little bit about it."
But you wish you were cool, so you didn't have to ask me.
Cat Beast, where's my hats? What's up?
Let me tell you something. Dramatic eyeglass pull. So before we get into our topics for today, let's do a quick rundown. So we'll talk about what we're playing this week, and or what we're playing over the last couple weeks, since we were supposed to do this podcast last week and we had to skip over for a week. We'll talk about some controversies with Nintendo. There's some stuff out there with Nintendo that kind of making people go but they've also dived. I can never remember the past of dive. Dove? Is it Dove?
Dove.
It's definitely not Divin.
It's definitely Divin.
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft. They have jumped into some different spaces that they have traditionally not been a part of before. So we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as some of the controversy surrounding Nintendo. We're going to talk about next gen. There's a lot of information around next gen swirling around as we get closer to the launch of those consoles, both the Xbox Series X and the PS5. And we'll talk a little bit about the controversy surrounding those two consoles as well. And then we'll talk about the Microsoft Game Showcase and some of the sighs heard around the world with Microsoft controversies there. So a lot of controversies this episode. I don't know if that's accurate or if I'm just using that word because I have it written down, and that's what I'm going with. So
we'll also talk about a couple things that are good. We'll talk about some of the new leaks for the RTX 3000 series, the big Navi cards that are coming out for our PC gamers out there. And as far as the controversy stuff or the stuff that people dislike about the Xbox Game Showcase, we'll also highlight some of the things that were more positive as well. So it's not just going to be bashing.
it's not just gonna be groans. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that we were gonna just shit on
Groans,
Xbox.
episode 2.
What the hell, Jeff?
I didn't mean to imply we're just gonna crap on Microsoft for an hour, but you never know. So before we jump into everything else, what are we playing? What do you guys got in your consoles and or your Steam libraries this week?
Joe?
Yeah, Joe, we'll start with you. I guess I should have led with let's start with Joe.
Okay. Just like every productive morning, it starts with Joe. I don't know why I said that.
Is that a coffee pun?
No.
It's a coffee pun for sure.
It was.
Insert coffee emoji.
So since last time, let's see. I've been playing some Watch Dogs 2, or since Ubisoft is French, I should say Watch Dogs 2, because I don't know how to say Watch Dogs in French. It's pretty sweet, and I recommend it. And I think if you dug the first one, you will like it. If you didn't like the first one, there are some changes, in my opinion, some improvements, some flush where there used to not be flush, and some fat trimmed where I think before there was maybe some stuff that we didn't need. And it also feels, I guess I'd say more accessible. I mean, Watch Dogs wasn't exactly known for being difficult to approach, but there's just a lot of things here where I remember from the first game kind of going, it sure would be nice if, and in this game I'm just having nothing but fun. I mean, nothing about it is frustrating me, except for when fools try to hack me, but it's fine.
Are you finding yourself getting pretty hyped for the third game?
Yeah, I'd say the more I'm playing this and kind of seeing, and I mean it's not. I mean I know I'm late to the Watch Dogs 2 party at this point, but yeah, there's a couple of I don't want to say gimmicks, but there's a couple of things in Legion that I've been kind of hearing about, and I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off, but I also want to say that I'm sort of eager to see how they pull it off. Like, for example, in Watch Dogs 1 and in 2, you play a specific character. And in 3, from what I understand, there's some dimension of an ability to kind of play as anybody. And it kind of feels like that isn't going to work with this sort of established, I guess, formula. And I mean, in my opinion, it's a good formula. So I don't know what that will look like, but I'm definitely not gonna not play it because I'm afeared of it. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm digging it. Aside from that, I have been continuing to check out and kind of get as deep as I can into some of the Isle of Armor stuff. It's a lot deeper than you'd think at first. There isn't a ton to do if you are kind of just interested in new moves and new Pokemon, but if you're really looking to uncover, dare I say, some plot points, and kind of see, you get, I'll try to keep it spoiler free, but you get somewhat of kind of a base of operations, and there are some things you can do to really kind of flesh that out. And so if you find that kind of thing fun, I think you'll dig it. If not, then maybe you won't. But then also I think the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to get Crown Tundra. So that's the second DLC. So that should be pretty cool too. And so basically that, and then binge watching Marvel Marathon with my wife lately is what I've been doing. So it's been pretty cool.
Nice. Steve, what about you, man?
I've played some Ghost of Tsushima, actually.
Dude, that looks
How is it?
good.
Dude, it is super fun.
Did you play Sekiro at all?
No, but I have it.
Okay, I was going to ask.
Yeah, so I have that in my Steam library. I have not played it at all yet. I've heard nothing but good things about that one, but I wanted to jump into Ghost of Tsushima. And
For sure.
it, like, I watched a lot of reviews on it. I just wanted to get, like, there's a bunch of reviews that you can find on YouTube of people that, I guess, train as samurai in Japan. They're like legit.
Sick.
That reviewed the combat styles and the way that they fight and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, a lot of this stuff is super legit. The way the stances, the fighting tactics, all that stuff. It's like they did a really, really good job to try to be genuine. And to me, that was really badass.
Yeah.
The opening scene is, it's, I mean, intense is, I guess, the only way that you can really describe it. The first like 5-10 minutes of it's mostly cinematic with like some driven mechanic where it, you know, kind of forces you through the beginning part of it, and it's, you know, cutscene after cutscene, in between some gameplay. But it's basically the Mongolians invading Japan, and or China or whatever the hell it is that they're invading. And it's when Genghis Khan did, you know, that whole thing, and it's super, as far as that part goes, it's pretty historically accurate. Caught the samurai off guard completely because they weren't used to things like essentially grenades, like explosions and things like that. They were used to fighting with honor, and, you know, like challenging the top person and trying to, you know,
Right.
fight them in one-to-one combat. And if they
They
won,
weren't used to black powder weapons.
yeah, exactly. They weren't used to just getting just the shit kicked out of them with no honor. Like, didn't matter. We were just gonna win, and it was super intense. And the whole like intro of it, I was just like, holy crap! It was super intense. It's very gory. It's very brutal. And there's a lot of like emotion and story tied into it as well. So you can, if you really enjoy story versus just combat and, you know, going and, you know, messing shit up in there, you can really get invested into the story and, you know, kind of follow the main character and his, you know, kind of quest. At least up to this point, I'm still trying to rescue his uncle. So I'm still pretty early in the game, I think. I don't know if that's like the whole game or what. But that's what I'm trying to do now. You're basically going around trying to rescue some samurai or find, you know, the few that are left to put together a little group to go and try to break your uncle out, who's like the top guy, and then try to fight back the Mongolian army. So it's super intense. It's super fun. And that's kind of been really majority of what I've been playing lately. I jumped on ESO again a little bit, mainly just to, I watched a couple streams of some streamers that I like to watch that were playing, and I didn't realize, which is odd to me, but I didn't realize that they have like add-on scripts to make the UI look a lot cleaner and make things just way easier to manage. So I downloaded Minion again, which I haven't downloaded in forever, and downloaded a ton of add-on scripts that just make it look a lot cleaner and make it run a lot nicer. So I'm going to jump back into that probably again this week and run through Greymore and see if I can't complete that or complete up to wherever we're at. Yeah.
Nice.
So it's been fun. Hefe?
Dope. My gaming time has been pretty limited this last week and a half. It's been a kind of a crazy week, but spent most of my time playing Xenogears. 22 years later, finally beat Xenogears.
Congrats.
So hopefully I'll be able to sit my ass down and bust out the backlog mania for that, which is exciting for a couple reasons. One, it means I can finally say I'm done with that game, but then I can put time into other games on my backlog. There's a lot of fun games, exciting games that I'm really interested in playing. Some that I've actually recently picked up that went automatically onto the backlog just by default. I really wanted to make sure I beat Xenogears, and I was worried. I actually spent like the last week grinding like levels because I heard the final boss was a fucking nightmare if you didn't have like some of the right items and the right leveling, and I was missing some crucial items I didn't pick up earlier in the game that you can't get if you miss them somehow. So like there's one boss that you fight that just the way the boss fight goes, like if you beat him a certain way, he drops an item that helps you like increase the odds of like really crucial item drops from other enemies. And I didn't get it because I didn't beat him the correct way and I didn't save it correctly, so I couldn't go back and like try again. So I was fucked on that and I had to go back and like level grind a bunch of times. I make sure my level was like above 75 for each character, which took me like 5 days just to do it because grinding in that game is a nightmare. But finally beat Xenogears, so that was cool. I started playing. I still haven't finished Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. So Curse of the Moon, for those of you who don't know, was Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was I wrote about it a little bit in the article I did on Kickstarter games. So Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is one of the most like one of the biggest successes in gaming from Kickstarter ever. It was the Koji Igarashi project that essentially is a Castlevania successor, for lack of a better term, because Konami is no longer making Castlevania games. But they did a 8-bit prequel as kind of one of the it was one of the milestones, or what, I don't know what they call them in Kickstarter, when basically they have stretch goals. So one of the stretch goals, if they hit a certain dollar amount the first time around, was an 8-bit prequel called Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. It came out about a year before Ritual of the Night did. It's super fantastic throwback to old school Castlevania. It was so successful by itself that they actually just made a sequel for it. So it is a brand new 8-bit Castlevania type game by the same people, Inti Creates. So I've been playing that, but it's freaking brutal. So it's taken me some time to get through it, and a lot of cursing, because it's not like exactly as hard as 8-bit Castlevania games, like if you played Castlevania 3, but it's pretty difficult, and it's got me a little frustrated. And then I started playing BioShock on the Switch. My wife got me the collection for Switch just out of the blue. She did something nice for me, and not that she doesn't ever do that, but we had a little bit of a rough week weeks ago, and I think she knew it, that it was pretty taxing on me, so she surprised me with a copy of BioShock Collection on Switch, which is a super fantastic collection. If you're Switch owners and you want to play BioShock, it is the remastered trilogy of BioShock games, including the like super edition of the first game with like director's commentary and a bunch of other like bonus content. So I started playing that on Switch just briefly, just to kind of change it up a little bit, just to see how it ran. It runs fantastically. So that was a cool surprise, because BioShock is a last gen game, but you would think that even last gen it's pretty powerful, and it might be taxing on the Switch. Doesn't tax it at all. It runs like butter. It looks great, and if you've played BioShock, which I think all of you have, it's wonderful. So
If
I
not,
started playing.
then would you kindly go play BioShock?
Yeah, would you kindly
go do that now? Stop, pause the episode. Actually, don't pause the episode. Wait till the end.
I think a pause it. Look them back, because they'll be so impressed with how good BioShock is, and they'll be like, "Why didn't I play this before? I gotta go back to those guys." Unless I start playing BioShock 2 and 3. So,
are you playing all of these on the Switch, or what are you playing? Like, obviously BioShock was, but
I already played 1 and Infinite on. I played on 360, and I played Infinite on PS3 because it was gifted to me, and somebody bought it for me for PS3. So I already played through both the first and third game all the way through prior. So this is just a new chance for me to play through them again. And the collection is all 3 games on the Switch.
Yeah.
I also have the collection on PS4, but I very, very rarely get to use my big TV to play video games, especially not violent ones. So the fact that I can have it on the Switch in my hand, and I like the ability to just put in headphones and like play it in the dark in bed, while my kids are sleeping.
Yeah.
That's a cool, terrifying bed shooting experience. So I'm all about that. BioShock isn't the scariest game, but it's pretty unsettling.
Yeah,
it's definitely creepy.
It's atmospheric. Like, it's not the scariest game I can play on the Switch, because I do have Alien Isolation, and that game literally makes me poop every time I play. I have to play on the toilet.
I wish Hellblade was on the Switch for you, man. You would lose your mind.
You've got to play this game, dude.
I don't know if it's coming out. I don't know, man. Is it coming out on the
Switch? Hellblade was coming to Switch. I think I read about it at one point. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, so those are the games I'm playing this week. I also picked up Mario Maker 2, just because I had a wild hair at my ass and I saw it in the store, and I was like, I kind of want to play it, because I heard nothing but great things about it, and nothing makes me happier than dying a lot in Mario games that are created.
It is available on the Switch right now.
There you go. So those of you, we're not paid by Nintendo to tell you that you can go get Hellblade on this. I knew it was coming out,
and it's $30.
Yeah, it's $29.99,
which is
a steal.
Just a steal.
Buy that.
We'll talk about some of the cool things Nintendo has going for it on the Switch in a couple minutes. But before we do that, let's dive into some news topics. So, Steve, you wanted to talk about a couple different news topics, specifically some new graphics cards.
Yeah, I mean, so everything right now is still rumors, but at this point we're close enough to official like launch information or launch reveals, or I guess is what you would call them, from like Nvidia and AMD for their next gen cards, that the leaks are pretty likely to be correct, and the people that are leaking them are trusted leakers, people that have been very accurate in previous leaks. You've got
4chan.
What's
That's
that?
what you're saying. So essentially, people on 4chan is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. So you've got the RTX. I think they're saying either 3090 or 3080 Ti, or it's possible that there's even going to be both variants. They haven't really said. That's kind of their top of the line or flagship card, outside of like the Titan or whatever. You're looking at, according to the recent leaks, there's like a Time Spy game benchmark, which some people say isn't a gaming benchmark, but that's what it's designed for. The newer cards are scoring over the 2080 Ti about a 50% boost in performance. So 50% better scores, which is ridiculous, because the 2080 Ti is already, I mean, obviously it's the top of the line card right now, but it's leaps and bounds beyond anything we've ever had previously. So this being 50% more powerful than the best card we've really ever seen in a consumer standpoint is ridiculous.
So I have two questions.
Yes.
Keep in mind that I don't know anything about graphics cards. The last game I played on my PC was Grand Theft Auto 2, because I wanted to play it and I downloaded it on my laptop.
Do you even need a graphics card to run that game?
I don't think you do. I think you can run it just fine on any old Windows 98 PC.
Yeah, integrated.
But when there was a time when the only thing I knew about graphics cards was the way they would advertise them when I worked at Best Buy was, this can play Crysis. So if it could play Crysis, you knew it was a good fucking graphics, because that game was apparently just so taxing on graphics cards. Is there a new
what year is it?
Is there a new gaming benchmark that's like,
dude, that game is still used as a joke, like,
yeah, Crysis is a meme for sure.
Yeah, the new one could definitely play Crysis at 60 FPS.
I know,
most likely.
What I'm saying is, when I worked at Best Buy, which was 10 years ago at this point, in 2006 through 2009, the standard, the benchmark, like, it was literally printed on the little like cards that they would put in front of the laptops and the desktops. Like, it could play Crysis. So like, if it could play Crysis, like, you knew it was a good thing. Even
see.
So like, what's the gaming benchmark now? Like, what's the game that like these graphics cards like, it can play X game? Like, what's the game like?
I think that anymore, like, sure, there's definitely games that they use, like they use the Tomb Raider game, they'll use Apex Legends sometimes. They'll use games that sometimes aren't the most optimized, to give you an example of like how it can kind of just push through the mud.
Right.
But anymore, it's usually things like Time Spy gaming benchmarks. It's an AI processor that runs it through the gamut, and it kind of puts it through everything from ray tracing down to just the compute units and the shaders and all that stuff. Like, it just goes bananas with all that, and that's going to give you a more complete look than just a game benchmark. Reason for that is you have other variables, I think, is kind of the main thing that they look at. Is there's other variables that like your CPU, your RAM, and stuff like that will impact how the game could perform, versus running a benchmark. It's less of that, because it's trying to specifically target how it functions in like DirectX 12 and going from there, versus just, hey, I can run Tomb Raider at 120 FPS. Cool.
What a nerd.
So these graphics cards will be able to play Crysis, is what you're saying.
So it's funny you mention that. So
maybe, yeah.
During this conversation, I just did a quick search. TechRival.com has the top 5 most GPU intensive games, and it says it's last updated June of this year, but in the article title it says of
Crysis 3 will be on there, I'm sure.
So here's the top 5. Far Cry 5. It says your rig will surely cry. Final Fantasy 15, a graphics card to die for. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, your graphics card will go wild. Number 4 is Crysis 3, and it literally says, "Can it run Crysis?" So yeah, and then Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Metro, Last Light Redux, Just Cause 3.
Is Rise of the Tomb Raider like graphically intensive game?
It's
There's
got a lot of detail.
Yeah, like there's weather effects
Right.
and Lara's hair and blood. I think NVIDIA actually, I think it was for, I don't know which game specifically. The first game I ever ran into it in was Witcher 3, but they had like, there's literally a setting called NVIDIA Hair FX where you can like, it renders each hair.
The hair follicles.
I turned it on and my computer exploded. So
it's all.
it was just, yeah. Well, and it was crazy because even without that setting, I was like, damn, this game looks incredible. And I was like, what's this? And I just was like, I mean, it was like just mushrooms. My computer was on mushrooms. It was just insane.
Your computer closed the game and dragged my computer to the recycle bin.
Stop. Can't function. Yeah.
System 32 delete.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
BitLocker. Thanks, Microsoft.
So apparently Crysis. Also sick BitLocker reference.
Yeah.
That's funny. I thought I was dating myself with the Crysis thing, but apparently
no, man.
That's
totally a meme.
That's still in the news, which I appreciate. It makes me feel not as old.
Yeah.
That's cool. So what else, Steve? Is there a lot of NVIDIA stuff happening?
Yeah, definitely. I think the announcement is expected to happen this month, which could mean that you could get like your Founders Editions card potentially released as early as this month. But I think beyond that, you're looking at like your third-party cards, like Asus, your ROG cards and stuff like that will probably come out in September, if the leaks are correct, and I mean that makes sense unless they day one launch it, which I doubt it. Usually the Founders Edition will have a little bit of time to get traction, but those cards should be coming out, and that'll be super badass. They're probably going to be around $1,100 for the top end card again, which is kind of booty, but it is what it is. Hopefully they drop them. I doubt it though, if they're that much better than the last gen.
Right.
But we'll see. NVIDIA already stopped production of the old stuff, so the new stuff's definitely coming out.
And usually when leaks happen, there's a high intensity for them to, high chance, I should say, for them to just announce it because they like, hey, the leaks are out.
Yeah.
Usually the more legitimate a leak is, the more likely they are to just be like, yep, there it is. Like, we were going to announce it, this other thing, but this fucker on 4chan screwed us, so here you go.
Yeah, I don't know why I guess I get why, but sometimes it just makes me laugh that they even try to hide it or get pissy about it. It's like, people are excited. Like, help people get more excited. Release information yourself, like Google kind of does with their Pixel stuff. And then AMD has their big Navi cards, their RDNA 2 chipset or RDNA 2 GPUs that are supposed to launch this year as well, which is supposed to be a hell of a lot better than their previous gen. And the rumors or the leaks surrounding that are saying that it should be at least as good as the 2080 Ti. Which is fantastic for NVIDIA to be releasing something that's at that level. I still don't think that it'll be better than the high-end 3000 series stuff, just because it's not usually that they're that competitive, but who knows? This could be the year that they get close. They did come out and say, though, that their production, or the leakers are really confident that their production will be delayed. So it won't be till like November or December that the AMD cards come out, which means that the third-party ones might even be early 2021 before we see those cards, which sucks, and it gives NVIDIA just another jump on them, but it is what it is. But they will have ray tracing, so that's a jump for them. For AMD.
So you picking up one of the $1,100 graphics cards when they drop, or are you?
I have had the money set aside for the 3000 series cards for like 8 months now, so I'm just been like chomping at the bit,
just waiting for them to announce it, and you're gonna be like add the card
day one before they're all sold out. I don't know if I'll wait until an Asus ROG card comes out or something like that, just because their machining process is much better, but I may be a little bit more impatient than that and just get a Founders Edition, which I'm sure will be fantastic anyway.
Right.
Who knows?
Joe, what's in the news for you, man? You already talked about the new Pokemon expansion, but what else is in the news?
I mean, I'm still well. It was pretty strange. Maybe not strange, but it was at least serendipitous that I think the last time we did this, I talked about how bad I missed Fable, and then lo and behold, the next week there was a Fable announcement.
Yeah,
So that was pretty cool.
It's almost like I told you that there was a new Fable game coming, and you were like, "No, I believe when I see it." And then, like, literally, I think it was the next like week.
you should
Like,
you should talk about how much you want another Witcher game, because I could really use another Witcher game.
they did announce,
If
I did see an announcement of a Witcher prequel series
Yeah.
coming to Netflix. I
Netflix
don't know.
if I'm not mistaken, I've actually seen some buzz of another Witcher game. It's just not a Geralt of Rivia game.
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care either.
Yeah.
So
Zero fucks.
I'm definitely hyped for that, and I know probably coming up soon we're gonna talk about next gen. So that would be that. A Fable game is almost. I don't know. I'm saying almost. It's enough for me to go next gen. Like unless as it is like getting closer to release, I'm starting to see stuff or there's publications talking about it's just like bad, which I kind of doubt. So I mean, I'll probably go in just for that. And I know I'm not even the only one in my house that feels that way. So
That's fair.
Interesting.
yeah.
I asked this question. Are we gonna jump into next gen now, or
I was gonna go into another topic.
go ahead?
Similar.
I'll save it.
Another topic about things that can play Crisis. So if you didn't see, Crisis just got released on a Nintendo Switch. It is the first Crisis game, and it apparently plays magnificent. I haven't seen I haven't played the game myself, so I haven't seen it in my own Switch, but seen some reviewers talk about it. Nintendo Life did a fantastic review on Crisis. Apparently, it runs like a dream on the Switch, which is pretty cool considering, again, it was once the benchmark for PC like graphics cards. Like, can it run Crisis? So the fact that such a once upon a time graphically intense game is on the Switch just shows how powerful that little console is. If you haven't seen games like Doom run on Nintendo Switch, aside from the frame rate drop, like Doom
Witcher 3 is also on Switch.
Yeah.
looks, yeah. The Witcher, the comparisons are a little bit starker contrast between the big boy consoles and the Switch, like
Or
the
PC
graphics
for sure.
Yeah, naturally.
Another one is Mortal Kombat 11. Like I have that on Switch, and you can definitely tell a difference between the Xbox and PS4 version. But Doom is one of those ones that, man, like I can barely tell the difference between how it looks on, Xbox versus the Switch, except for the frame rate. But wanted to talk a little bit about Nintendo in general. So for those of you who don't follow Nintendo, the Switch has had a little bit of an up and down year. Some people kind of feel like they're resting on their laurels with Animal Crossing because during July, when they normally would have done a kind of a big Nintendo Direct, they did reveal a couple new games on a Direct Mini, but there's been a lot of buzz on like Twitter from a lot of Nintendo fans just saying Nintendo hasn't been doing as much with their console this year. It's kind of been a down year for the Switch, even though they've released some just crazy big titles like Animal Crossing, New Horizons, which is crushing sales numbers in Japan. It's still one of the top selling games in Japan right now. You can't find a Switch anywhere. I know we all have one, so we're not looking, but like if any of you talk to your friends who don't have them, like especially during quarantine, everybody's looking for them and you can't get them
I feel like it's kind of hard to find just consoles in general too, though. Switch definitely more so because you can at least get used market a little bit better, but the used market for the Switch is ridiculous.
It's dog shit. Yeah. It's just super fun. Like when I was in, I bought that Mario Maker 2 game in Target, and the lady is checking out. She's like, "Oh, did you, how are you gonna play this? You didn't get a Switch. That we don't have them." I'm like, "I already have one. Obviously, I'm not buying a game for a console I don't have."
Oh no!
Like,
didn't think about that.
One of my buddies was looking to pick one up for his wife, and has been having a hard time doing it. My niece reached out to me. She's like, "How do I get one of these things?" I'm like, "Oh, good luck." I know, Joe, you were even thinking about picking up a second one just so you didn't have to share with your kids. You were looking at picking up a light. It's just super, like, they're not keeping up with the demand right now, but that's one of the controversies right now. There's also just some controversies with people not thinking they're getting enough games out, whereas like PS4 has had Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us both in the last 2 months, like back to back. Just
Massive sellers.
fantastic console sellers.
Fire. Yeah.
PC titles are killing it right now. I think even Xbox has had a couple third party games come out that are kind of hitting it big. So people are not feeling Nintendo, and then on top of that, there's some leaks and things like that have hit the internet that lead me to believe that I wonder what Nintendo's doing kind of right now with just their whole setup. And then on top of all that, what they did release this month was they released Paper Mario, the Origami King, which is getting super mixed reviews. A lot of people were hoping that it was going to be another 1,000-year door, but it's apparently not, and it's not even really crazy RPG heavy, which is kind of disappointing considering Paper Mario is essentially a Mario RPG sequel. And then
I was just gonna say, speaking of Mario RPGs,
and then they jumped into Lego of all things. So last month they leaked a Nintendo Mario Lego set, which had some people interested, but it was like, really, this is kind of weird. This is like, it is a joint partnership with Lego, which is Nintendo historically hasn't partnered with some of these other brands, these other bigger brands like that. And then they announced also this month a NES Nintendo or NES Lego setup with like its own little CRT television with like an antenna and everything, and basically just like you crank the side of, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's like a miniaturized Nintendo made out of Legos, and it's got the little cartridge slot. You can put cartridges in it, connect controllers to it, the whole shebang. Like it's a full recreation of a Nintendo that connects to a little TV, and then the TV has like a little crank on the side of it that actually rotates a Mario screen around, and then you can like make the little Mario avatar on. It's crazy. It's crazy intricate for Lego, but it's just Nintendo. It almost hints like they're kind of branching away from video games a little bit, which is interesting because there's been rumors about a Mario movie coming out, like an actual animated Mario movie partnership with I think DreamWorks. So Nintendo is just kind of all over the map, and apparently they're not doing the one thing, if you ask fans, that they have historically always done, which is make and produce excellent video games. So it's interesting. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it. I know Joe and I probably play a little bit more Nintendo than Steve does, but I know Steve, you've dove into. I need to figure out what that word is. Steve has delved far more into Nintendo recently with Animal Crossing and some other games on the Switch. But what are you guys' thoughts on all the craziness with the house that Miyamoto built?
I think it's interesting you mentioned, especially towards the end, you were talking about how fans kind of consider that Nintendo's known for making great games. I certainly wouldn't argue with that, but I think right alongside that, you wouldn't even really need to look, because I'm well aware that you're aware. I think they've always kind of pioneered hardware, really. I mean, they were really the first handheld. They were the first to kind of go. If you recall, the Wii was kind of like the first mocap, and it was real gimmicky at first, but then, sure enough, everybody followed suit. And then, of course, now with the Switch, they've really been the only name in the handheld market forever. I know there was like PS Vita and there was Game Gear and stuff, but
PSP.
Yeah, but you can't touch Nintendo in handheld, and you can't. And now Switch is one of the top consoles and the top handheld. And before that, the 3DS was the reigning king, and it wasn't even close. So, they're hardware pioneers as far as I'm concerned, and innovators as much as they are a game factory. So
it usually takes them a gen or two to innovate again, but they always seem to do it somehow. Like the 64 was a pretty big leap. Like I think it was
the 64 was a cartridge console in the CD era. It was this weird dinosaur at a time that we all have incredible memories.
And it was awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
It still did things that other consoles didn't do at the time. It like you could argue that either the PlayStation or the 64 had the leg up, but there was really things that each of them did better than the other in terms of the spectrum. There wasn't one thing that Nintendo
there wasn't a clear better, but I think that's almost a point for Nintendo because they had the technical disadvantage, and they weren't the clear.
They also chose to go that route. They chose to
Yeah.
do that. It cost them some relationships with Square and things
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
true, and there was some interesting twists and turns in the development of the 64 actually. But so yeah, you're definitely right. But
To your
still,
point, I think they innovate
the
about
controller.
right. Like, so you had the 64, and then the
Fork.
GameCube I think has definitely aged gracefully. I think a lot of people look at that with more reverence than they did before when the console came out. And then when they went to the Wii, like you said, the Wii was in more homes in America than I think just about anything but the PS2. And arguably won that console generation. You could argue that it really wasn't in the generation because
it definitely wasn't next gen. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it did so many things that brought more casual people into the gaming sphere, which
Wii commercials were the first
stuff.
time you saw parents playing games with the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Like
and then
Wii
the
Fit,
Wii
Wii Sports, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. And then the Wii U was kind of a failure, and they semi-innovated on the Wii, but it really wasn't like a leap forward. And then Joe was right. You have the Switch, which is doing kind of the same thing the Wii did, right? But it's doing things I think differently. It's the Switch is far more attractive to hardcore gamers while still creating content and doing it in a way that appeals to non-hardcore gamers. Like I got my a Switch Lite for my wife. She really likes it. She plays Animal Crossing. She plays Stardew Valley. My niece, who has never played a video game before in her life, got a Switch just so she could play Animal Crossing. So like they're doing something right with the Switch in the fact that it is a hardcore console that also appeals to the casual market, which is the Wii kind of the opposite, right? It was strictly for casuals and it had some occasional hardcore games here or there.
And I mean, there were even releases on Wii like Force Unleashed, right? It came out on the Xbox 360 as well as PlayStation as well as Wii. And I remember I picked it up on Wii specifically because I was so I was enamored just with the idea of having the Wiimote and doing the lightsaber, and it just felt like something out of my childhood come to life.
Kind of VR-ish.
And yeah, and I played it, and I won't say it's bad, but I compare it. It doesn't really stack up to the experience that I got playing Force Unleashed on the 360. I vastly preferred the 360 experience, and so it isn't always this sort of shining beacon of perfection, but they're innovative, and that's when you innovate. That's the risk you take, right? So
yeah, there were very few Wii games that I recall that were third-party ports that I would want to play on the Wii over playing them on the other consoles. But it didn't mean that the first-party content wasn't good. You had Mario Galaxy, which was fantastic. Punch Out on the Wii was
Skyward Sword. Yep.
All the Zelda stuff. The fact that you had the eShop, the Virtual Console with all the classic games. They did a lot of things right with the Wii to attract certain casual or hardcore gamers, but it wasn't. You could tell it wasn't built for that, right?
Right.
But looking at Nintendo, like the biggest controversy that they have going right now is just that there's a lot of like, I think without COVID, without some of the lack of these big events that normally would draw the gaming companies to release information on new games. Like normally we'd have something about a big game coming this holiday season, and there isn't any news, right? Nintendo kind of stealth dropped Origami King. Like they announced it about a month before it was coming out at an event that they normally would have like probably talked about games coming in the holiday season. They've kind of teased Breath of the Wild 2, but there's no way that game's coming this holiday season.
It's ready.
There's been hints because this is the 35th anniversary of the Mario series. There's been hints that they're going to do some kind of crazy collection with all the 3D Mario games, kind of similar to the Mario All-Stars game from the Super Nintendo era. But there hasn't been any announcement of it, so it seems really unlikely that there will be anything coming this year.
There's supposed to be a Galaxy sequel too, isn't there?
There's been talks about a Galaxy sequel. There's been talks about DLC for Mario Odyssey. There's a lot of stuff that Nintendo fans have been asking for that just isn't coming. There has been rumors about Metroid Prime trilogy coming to the Switch ever since they announced Metroid Prime 4 was coming. But Metroid Prime 4 pretty pretty surprisingly got delayed. They had to scrap that game and start all the way over from scratch. So a lot of fans have been speculating that in the meantime, they're going to port Prime Trilogy to the Switch to kind of get fans going and to get people ramped up into Prime 4. That hasn't happened yet. And there's been a lot of leaks, like the recent Direct Mini was also leaked, which they announced. What was the game? The big game at Nintendo Direct Mini. I don't recall exactly what it was. It's a very Japanese series. What was it?
For Nintendo, that can't be.
No, but it's like a franchise that historically
Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Yeah. So they announced Shin Megami Tensei 5, and then they also announced Shin Megami Tensei 3 remastered for the Switch, which is a complete rebuild of that game from the ground up. I believe it's similar in vein to the Final Fantasy 7 remake. So they did announce some interesting stuff, but it was like the Direct Mini almost seemed like it was an answer to people saying, "Where's a Nintendo Direct? Like we should see one by now. We haven't seen one," rather than like a true big event like last year. The Direct that they announced like Breath of the Wild 2. They announced
Link's Awakening port
Link's
too.
Awakening. They announced the Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Like it was like big title after
Pokemon.
big title. All was exclusive content to Nintendo and a couple third-party things here or there, but they just haven't had that thing this year, and it seems a lot of fans think they're just kind of resting on the Animal Crossing laurels, and maybe they have the right to do that because that game is just printing money for them. And
I have a feeling there's more to it than that. So I'm going to say this, and I think it'll kind of start a conversation here because I think it alludes to something. There's a lot of game streaming things that are becoming very, very big, right? I think that, and maybe I'm incorrect here, and I know there's a lot of games that the Switch plays well, but I think that in comparison to the other current gen and next gen or whatever consoles, I think that it's pretty safe to say that Nintendo has always had the least powerful hardware.
Sure.
I think that maybe with all this like streaming stuff, like we're looking at Xbox xCloud or whatever, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. You have Google Stadia, you have PS Now, you have all these different ones that are out, GeForce Now, all that stuff where it's cloud gaming using like your phone or whatever. And
right,
there's a built-in handheld device that you have, right? You don't have to go buy a Switch. You can play your Xbox games on your phone once that stuff is, fully fleshed out and everything. I think that Nintendo their IP is what makes them the most money, right? It's not the hardware that they have being super awesome. So I think that it could be very possible that they're looking at potentially seeing what that industry does, how that's going, and they're probably working on something like Nintendo Online, where they're going to come out with their own controller configuration that you just set your phone into or whatever. You can play with your phone, and you can play all your Switch titles, all your any Nintendo game or whatever. Maybe that's a pipe dream, right? But you can play your game titles streaming through Nintendo Online, and they don't have to invest in the hardware of another console. A lot of these, like Xbox and probably something that PlayStation is going to do as well, their new Xbox Series X is more of a driver for their, in my opinion, I could be wrong, more of going to be a driver for xCloud and Game Pass Ultimate and stuff like that, because they want more people to play games, period. That's their big thing. Their best value by like a massive margin is Game Pass. And they have fantastic titles that are available a lot of times on day one that are available at, like I have Xbox Game Pass beta. It's like $5 a month, and I can play a good chunk of day one release Xbox games on my PC at no additional cost. I can just download them and play them. And that's really where they're going. It's really pro-consumer in that, but it's just to get more people playing more games. If Nintendo can see the writing on the wall, they don't need to invest a bunch of money in new hardware solutions. They can go full into software, go into an online, game streaming setup like that, and utilize the stuff that we already have. And I think that's a good play.
There's a couple counters that I see to that. One is that, to your point, I don't think that the Game Pass. I like Game Pass, Project xCloud. Those are things that interest me, like being able to play games on my phone without necessarily having to buy a console.
Mhm.
Super intrigues me because that could be, it's one less thing I got to buy. But I don't think it's pro consumer because subscription services are what they want. They don't want you to play games. They want you to subscribe to their shit. And
Sure.
that's what they're trying to do. It's the new world we live in of Netflix and Disney Plus
Sure.
and Hulu. Like they don't care how many games you play. They want your $15 a month or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, of course.
And I can definitely see Nintendo going that route. But to our conversation earlier, one thing Nintendo has done consistently, or at least attempted to do consistently since I would say since the GameCube, but mostly since the Wii, is they've tried to bring new hardware innovations where other companies I think have done that but have failed. Like when Nintendo
just copy Nintendo.
did the Wii, the whole thing was the industry trying to catch up to Nintendo. With Sony, there was the PlayStation Move, which they haven't innovated with since then. They've done PlayStation VR since then, but that's kind of a whole different ballgame in general. And then
remember the Kinect?
Microsoft had a Kinect. The Kinect is actually underrated. I think the Kinect was a lot closer to what we did than the PlayStation
Cool,
Move.
Jeff. Cool.
There just wasn't a lot of software made for it, and that was his biggest flaw. But and then the Switch, you have what Nintendo's trying to do with the Switch and really pushing with the Switch is local multiplayer. The ability to put the console on a table, put out two controllers, and not to
co-op.
with everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
Just like couch co-op on the 64 days.
Absolutely.
And
16-player Smash battles.
It isn't even just that Nintendo is pushing, because other developers are making games with that same mindset. A game that I played recently called Aqua Lungers. It's a little indie title, but it is designed specifically. The entire premise of the game doesn't work unless you're playing with somebody else on the couch. You can't play online. There's no online play. It's just get 3 people and play this kind of competitive, multiplayer from your couch. And I think that is a big push. So while I do think that Nintendo will do something like that, like some kind of subscription service, like they kind of would be stupid not to.
Sure.
I also don't see them ever leaving the hardware scape in its totality. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't shift to something. Like they've already made the Mario Jump app. They've already made the Mario Kart app, and Dr. Mario is their new phone app game. So they have 3 games. Actually, if you count Pokemon Go, there's 4. But I don't really think people consider Pokemon Go to be specifically Nintendo, like the way that they consider Mario Jump. They also did announce the Pokemon MOBA game, so they are pushing games to other platforms, specifically the mobile market, because that's
that just makes sense. I mean, it's
you
a
can't
massive
not do
income
that.
stream. Yeah, of course. And
So-
I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to dump hardware altogether. I just think that maybe that's a big reason why we're not seeing them focus on releasing a new console or releasing a Nintendo Switch 2 or talking about it at this point. That as far as I know, sure, the local gameplay stuff that's a big Nintendo thing. It always has been. So I think that's their group of people, like that's their player segment that loves that stuff. Sure. So I'm sure they'll never abandon that. I just think that they might see like, hey, why do we need to spend the money on all this extra infrastructure, extra hardware to do this if we can do it this way, and maybe have 2 sources of revenue for it. And maybe they release a beefier version of the Switch. I mean, the console itself is pretty kind of perfect, really.
Yeah, there's not really much you can do with a Switch 2. I think that would really like you could make a slightly better screen and maybe a slightly more powerful console, but like I don't think it would be innovative or iterative enough to have like most people run out and jump out and buy a new one.
Yeah, I don't think
agree.
most people would.
It's pretty self-contained. Yeah, I don't know where they're gonna go aside from doing something different.
The only reason I would even say make it a little bit faster, a new CPU, a little bit more RAM, a little bit better GPU, whatever, is when you mention things like besides the FPS on Doom, like what I'm saying, like there's little things that maybe just work on making it more fluid, and maybe that's a software hangup. I have no idea, because I haven't played those titles on it, and I don't know the inner workings of the Switch in that way, so couldn't tell you. But just to make those things more scalable.
I think there's been rumors too of like a Switch Pro,
Sure.
that would be a home only console that you would just plug into the TV, similar to
It's like
I
the
don't know if you guys ever saw the PlayStation TV. It was a really short lived,
right.
essentially a Vita that you just plugged into your TV and it could play video games, but it could also play.
It'd be like an antithetical Switch Lite.
Yeah,
Right.
basically, yeah. So the Switch being the mid tier that just plays games,
Yeah.
either mobily or on the TV. The Lite just plays mobile. The Pro, but I think if they were going to do that by now, they probably would have already done it. I really
Nintendo
don't
TV.
see them iterating. The fact that they can't keep up with the hardware demands of the current console
Sure.
doesn't bode well for them to be cranking out, a brand
A
new
different device.
version of the same device that allows them to.
Yeah.
So I
Right.
think a lot of it is just I think they probably got some stuff coming this holiday season, and they're probably just waiting until maybe a month before. If the Paper Mario Origami King is any indicator, we'll probably see a couple big Nintendo announcements October, November for the holiday season. There'll probably be some big IP drops. Hopefully, Metroid Prime Trilogy on Switch. That would be my dream, but I doubt it. But something will come, I'm sure. But there's just been a lot of fan uproar on the Twitterverse about Nintendo's lack of games, even though they've released like several big titles this year, and people are just bitches.
The indie scene, I feel like on Switch is kind of popping off too. Like I feel like there's a lot of indie games out there for it.
Ton of indie stuff. The Switch is
Not a lot of AAA
probably
maybe, but
the place to go for indie stuff. Like
Well,
it's
the
it's
3DS
always
before that
Steam
was.
and then Switch like right after. But like a lot of the big indie developers, they're making their games exclusive for Switch now. Like there's been a couple games that Axiom Verge was a Metroidvania game that was on. I think it was on everything. It was on PS4. It was on Steam. They announced at a direct last year that Axiom Verge 2 is coming to Switch, and I think that was the first announcement of the game even coming. And it might even be a timed exclusive for the Switch. Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon was huge on Switch. The sequel got announced and release date. I told you guys last time about the Sports Story, the sequel to Golf Story. That sequel, I think, is a Switch exclusive. So a lot of these indie developers are taking to the Switch because it's an easy platform
it's easy
for
to
them
push
to
them out.
put their games to, and people love being able to just go on and buy cheap games on the Switch and get good value for their money rather than they'll spend their $60 on their Animal Crossings and their Mario Galaxies and shit like that, Paper Mario, but they also won't be able to buy a couple $10-$15 games, and the indie market is perfect for that, right? So enough about the Switch. Talked about Nintendo quite a bit. We talked a little bit just now when we were talking about the Switch about next gen and how Nintendo kind of hasn't hinted at anything yet, but we've gotten the announcements of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X both this year. So Joe, we talked about 30 minutes ago about how you just said Fable is a game that could push you to next gen. Are you talking day one? Are we talking like you might get a Series X day and date? Because Fable will probably be on PC, I would imagine, as well. So that's not necessarily a.
Well, that's true. So yeah, I mean that would be a big factor. Just in my personal consideration is is it an exclusive or not? Um, I don't know. I've never been really I need to get next gen just for the sake of having next gen. I have always been kind of I've always waited until there was a reason. I mean, I suppose being sort of a technophile anyways, that's reason enough. But I mean, just waiting until
It's
there's
new.
a specific right, exactly. I'm not the guy that upgrades his phone 4 times a year. I mean, I know you're out there. If you do that, cool.
Awesome. What's it do better?
I just don't do that. Right, exactly. All right.
Well, in the tech sphere, they have their early adopters, right? The people are going to buy the new thing
Sure. Yeah.
regardless of what it is, right? So, and I don't think, at least for me and Joe, I don't think we are. Steve, you're
It depends on
console
what it is.
guy. So you're a console second guy. So if it's a graphics card, yeah, you're going to be day one in line for it if you're hyped for it. But I don't think you're going to be buying a PS5 or a Series X on release date. So I don't think I've ever bought any system on release date.
I have.
With the exception
Oh,
of
I've got games on release dates, but yeah, but never consoles.
games on release date, yes. But I think the only console I bought on launch date was the PSP.
I actually pre-ordered the Xbox One.
Did you?
I did.
Oh,
remember
wow.
that, yeah.
Nice.
So I guess my question for you guys would be, why aren't you going next gen? Like, it would be, easy for us to just say, yeah, we don't buy consoles when they're new out. But like, what is it about this specific gen that is preventing you from running out and buying one of these consoles or pre-ordering one of these consoles? And then I'll flip that question on you and say, what would it take to get you interested? Like, Joe, if I told you tomorrow that Fable was only going to be on Xbox Series X and the only way you could play it was if you had a Series X on day one, is that enough for you to go out and buy that game? Or are you good to wait 6 months to play that game, knowing that the console's price might drop, you might be able to get a bundle later on, et cetera, so forth.
So that's a good question. I would say for me, I would imagine this is the case for most people, but I mean, maybe not. It's never really about budget or like means. It's just kind of more about like why, right? Like, I mean, Jeff, I know this will resonate with you. I've got my own backlog of stuff. I mean, I literally have games on Steam that I bought during maybe not the summer sale, but whatever one was right before that, that I wanted, I legitimately am interested in, have not cracked them open. And I hope I'm not the only one in that boat, because otherwise I'm gonna cry.
Definitely not.
Right, cool. So it's just there's kind of, I mean, I would say I'm in the camp that's hungry for a new Fable game. I really love that franchise. Really, really, really love that franchise. But I mean, do I need to get it immediately and kind of like daddy needs it, like no, because I mean it's not, I guess what it is for me, it's not going anywhere, and I mean the worst thing that could happen is maybe I'm late to the party, like I was just talking about a little earlier with Watch Dogs 2. Like, it's not exactly a new game, but to me it's new, and I don't feel like my experience is diminished by having waited. And in fact, I guess maybe one of the upsides maybe is if you don't play it right away, there are things like bugs that will get found out and patched, or crash issues that'll get repaired. It's a lot easier to find. I mean, not that I'm a serial help looker upper, but I mean, if you ever are stuck or you have a question, that stuff's out there.
Sure.
And I got Skyrim actually. Madeline and I waited in line at GameStop to buy Skyrim when it came out. We literally got it at midnight, went home and played it. We didn't sleep for 2 days. It was awesome.
Little did you know you'd buy it 11 more times.
It's so true. And you know what? I'm not even mad. But do I feel the need to do that with every game? No. I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I got Sword and Shield day of. I did it. I did it this time through Amazon, so I had to wait a couple days. But I got it, and I've been playing it like mad ever since. I did the same thing with Sun Moon. I didn't do that with a couple of the like XY. I got that late, and it just, it doesn't add anything for me. So if it adds something for any of you, then I think that's cool. But just personally for me, it's just not something I can really see myself doing. Now I pre-order a game for sure,
Sure.
but
Just saying you have it on day one
Right.
isn't like.
No.
I think games are a little bit different than consoles, though, because it's like you said, Joe. I think there are, unlike other media like movies or TV shows where there's a lot of buzz and a lot of hype that if you miss out on something right when it comes out, you might get things spoiled for you, things like that. And I think that element still definitely exists in the gaming sphere, but I don't think as much.
I love what you just said. Yeah, with a movie, or even even a show or a concert, right? I mean, seeing it in person, it's just not the same as if you've got it on disc or vinyl or whatever. And similar wise with a movie, right? I mean, there are certain things you want to. I would go so far as to argue, and I mean, maybe this is a different topic for a different podcast, but I'd go so far as to argue with certain films, you see them in a theater, it's going to be unlike watching it at home, no matter what your system is like, right? And
Right.
with gaming, I'm sure there's an analogous argument, right? Like I'm sure I play on a Sega laptop when I'm on PC. I'm sure it's not as good as Steve's rig whatsoever. I'm sure it's night and day. But the game is not. It's not any better if you play it any sooner,
Yeah, your
right?
personal
So
experience doesn't necessarily change based off of
right,
the power of the
right,
hardware. I guess what I meant to say was like, a movie comes out, a movie's in the theater for a month, right? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of it's in the zeitgeist if it's a big movie, and yes, there are advantages to seeing it in the theaters, but I mean, just like, movies come and go quicker, whereas like a game, especially in 2020, a lot of the big titles take 20, 30, 40 hours to complete. So it's like whether you do that, right when the game comes out in June and you're playing it through, till August, September, whatever, or whether it comes out in June and you wait till December to pick it up. I don't think there's a lot of like necessary, like the gaps there aren't that big. Although I will tell you that you guys influenced me to pre-order Cyberpunk because of all the hype you guys were talking about it. So
yes,
pre-ordered
one
that,
of us,
and it
one
was
of us.
$10 off on Amazon, so I pre-ordered it on
Awesome.
Amazon.
You're
But
welcome, CD Projekt Red. One more.
but yeah,
Double
but I guess
XL.
what I'm supposed to say is like I think there's a difference between like waiting for a game for a couple months for a console you can play. Like for me, um, if I didn't buy pre-order Cyberpunk, cool, I could have played it, a month, 2 months, 3 months later, whatever. Waited till it was on sale.
Right.
Like I'm still excited about the idea of playing Red Dead 2, even though that game's more than a year old at this point. What, 2 years old at this point?
Me too.
I'm still excited to play it at some point, right? I think that even without the hype, they're still there. But I guess what I'm saying is like with next gen, it isn't the same as like waiting to play a game. Sometimes it's like, there's you gotta spill out $600 in some cases just to get the console, right? And then it's like,
what's the
do you
rush?
shoot a lot on just getting the box and then not even getting a game to play it on? Like,
Right.
and another thing with at least with Xbox, there seems to be such a focus on buy Xbox Series X and then X game will work on Xbox Series X with enhanced graphics, right? Cyberpunk being
Looks
a perfect
better,
example.
sure.
So if you buy Cyberpunk on Xbox One and you upgrade to Series X, cool. Cyberpunk's going to be better. You're going to get the enhanced version, Series X version for. So it almost seems like,
Cool.
even to match our hesitation to go next gen, are the game companies basically saying, we know there isn't going to be a ton of games for this thing yet. So if you're buying Cyberpunk, but then you want to buy a Series X, good news, you can play Cyberpunk on your Series X and it's going to look better. So it's almost like you're getting a next gen game, even though you're getting a current gen game, right?
Sure.
And I think that's what my biggest draw away from, like, yeah, I want a PS5 at some point. Yeah, I want an Xbox Series X at one point. But today, there isn't a single game on any of the lineups that's like telling me I need to go out and pre-order one of these consoles, right? Like I think the last game that
Does such a game exist though? I mean,
what's that?
Does such a game exist?
If they said Last of Us 3 was coming to PS5, that might be enough, right? But even for me, like I knew Last of Us 2 was coming to PS4, and I didn't have a PS4 up until just my last birthday. My wife bought me one because she knew I wanted to play Last of Us 2. Like she knew that was the one game I wanted to play on this one console.
Yeah.
So like, but that was also 6 years into the life of that system. It wasn't like a brand new thing that was going to cost double, I think, almost what my wife probably paid for it. So
yeah,
I don't know if there's a game aside from Last of Us 3 that would make me run out and pre-order a PS5 today. I don't know if there's there isn't a Gears of War. The Gears of War 7 could be announced and it could be the greatest thing ever, and I don't think I would go out and pre-order a Series X. Doesn't mean I don't want either of them, but I don't think there's anything super appealing right now about jumping to next gen, and that's not going to change by being able to get some enhanced versions of my current games. Steve, what are your thoughts? Like, I know with you being a mostly PC guy, probably wouldn't jump out and get any, but is there anything that would draw you to running out and getting one of these new consoles? Like, what would the lure have to be to get a bearded Steve Wall to pre-order a PS5 or a Series X.
I've actually gone kind of both ways on this. Like at first I was like, I'm gonna get both of them. I'm gonna trade in the Xbox One X that I have, and I'm gonna trade in the PlayStation 4 on day one. I'm just gonna swap them out, and GameStop might give me $20 and I'll pay the rest. You know, like, but usually because they have their deals at GameStop sometimes where deals where you get like almost what you'll get on OfferUp for the console that you traded in. So I've thought about that, and then I think if I'm being honest, unless I'm misreading what I've been reading and what I've been hearing about the Xbox, I think that I'll probably trade both of them in, and I'll just get a PlayStation 5. If I get the PlayStation 5 early or not is I'm not really sure, but I think that might be what I do. And the reason I say that is, it kind of goes back to the Game Pass thing. Like with Game Pass Ultimate, unless I'm misunderstanding this, everything that they're releasing on Xbox Series X is available to play through Xbox Series or through the Game Pass on PC. So like Halo on day one, Fable when it comes out on day one, like all of these games are supposed to be available through Game Pass on PC immediately. Why would I do that? It just seems redundant. So
that's a good point.
PlayStation wise, makes perfect sense. They have PlayStation exclusives that I cannot play on anything but that unless years later they come out on Steam or whatever, like, you know, these other ones. So yeah, sure, that might be what I do. But the Xbox, like, while it's arguably more powerful than the PlayStation and all that, there's no incentive there for me as a PC primary gamer to get it, because crossplay should be available for all these new games, if what I'm reading is correct. There's backwards compatibility on the Xbox X, you know, or the Xbox Series X to the new stuff or whatever. Like, so there's no real incentive there to upgrade because you can't only play on the new one versus the old one.
Right. I just don't even know how much of an argument that even really is. Like if you get Cyberpunk on the One X, then it's gonna look better. Like are we talking like 4K to 8K? Like, I mean, do you need cyborg guys to notice? Like, I mean, how much better can it look?
Sure,
you know
exactly. Well, 100% that argument, right?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest disadvantages of the next gen is that, like,
I mean, ray tracing too. Like the Xbox Series X does not support ray tracing, to my knowledge.
Sure, but I in general, like, in the past, part of the appeal of next gen consoles was always the leap in graphical capabilities.
Right.
And the leap is so much shorter now every generation. Like, did we really see that significant of a jump between the 7th gen and the 8th gen? Like, let's be real. Like, yes, there's a couple games on the PS4 that look like Last of Us 2 looks outstanding. Ghost of Tsushima looks spectacular. Final Fantasy VII Remake looks amazing. And I'm not criticizing those games in any way, shape, or form or any of the other beautiful looking titles. But was it really a significant leap from Gen 7 to Gen 8? Like
I think a year from now, it makes a difference. Launch day, doesn't. There's substantially more powerful consoles. We don't have the games available to make use of it, so neat.
Sure.
It's like having a new TV, nothing to watch, or a new car,
right?
Yeah.
But I think
fuel for it.
Like I don't think we're ever going to see the same type of leap that we saw from like the PS1 to the PS2 generation, or even the PS2 to, I guess it would be Gen 5 to Gen 6,
right?
Or Gen 6 to Gen 7. Like,
or maybe we will, but we just can't even imagine it. I mean, I don't know. Like, how much better can it look? Honestly,
I think it's gonna boil down to things like load time, quality of life stuff, right? Load time, openness of games, field of view, depth of vision, like stuff like that.
It'll be about hardware. It'll be about how the experience is delivered.
System. Like it doesn't. Like the quality of life stuff that's going to sell me on a system is backwards compatibility. Like part of the appeal of PS5 to me is that there's been rumors that it's going to be backwards compatible with every PlayStation, and if that's the truth, which I doubt at this point, just because,
dude, 100%,
that's going to be crazy. But if I can literally take any game on any PlayStation console and put it in a disc, that might be enough, right? Especially if it means I can go sell my PS3 and sell, my PS4 and put that towards it. Because that
Yeah.
might be enough, right? To have
It's
one box that does it all. But
it's weird and frustrating that like there were 360 games I can't play on my Xbox One, and it just feels like it's because they didn't want me to be able to.
No,
They've also said that the new Xbox is going to be backwards compatible as well. I don't know how far back that will
Sure.
go.
because it costs a crazy amount of money for them to do it. Like if you look back at the PS3 generation, so I worked at Best Buy when the PS3 launched, and the big controversy with PS3 at the time was they made two versions of it. There was a version that was backwards compatible with PS2 games, and then there was a version that didn't. And the version that was backwards compatible was like $100 more expensive.
You know,
And it's because
they're doing that with the new stuff. They're making two versions of the PlayStation and two versions of the Xbox, one with a disc tray and one without. So
they know how to do it now to where they can reduce the, because back then they had to use like a whole different processor to emulate
sure,
the
I do remember that.
the PS2 games.
Yep.
So that was one of the reasons. Now they can do software emulation that works almost just as good as the regular stuff. With Xbox One, like the 360 titles and the Xbox regular Xbox titles that are backwards compatible, you put the disc in, it's not actually playing from the disc. It's actually just running a version of the software. It's basically downloading it to the system and playing it through an emulator, which works just as fine, but like it's also why it doesn't work with every single game. So if PlayStation,
But we don't have that problem on PC whatsoever. I mean, that's what GOG is for. So I mean, I'm
Right.
just saying if they want to stave off obsolescence, they should probably figure it out.
they should.
Figure it out.
But that's probably the only thing that would get me, and that's not even enough to get me to buy a new
Get them up
console,
peppers.
right? Like, I don't know. Like, I always like the idea of next gen, but there's just nothing makes me want to run out and pre-order any of these things.
Yeah, I would say I agree with you. Day one wise, like there isn't anything that says like this is one only available on this. So you have to get the new version. At least currently. So and they've all said that any of the new games, at least for I forget the duration of time, but for X amount of time, need to be able to run on both the PS5 and the PlayStation 4 or Xbox current gen and next gen.
Which, to my knowledge, they've never done that before. I don't think they've ever like had that stipulation that they have to play, because
I think it was left up to the game developers before.
Yeah.
And now it's like this is what it needs to be. So okay, thanks.
so I think
for
they
doing
know
that.
that they don't have.
Yeah,
enough.
it's just a
Right.
math problem. Yeah.
Right. Now, I honestly think it's like I'm grateful that they did it this way, but I almost think Sony, if they really wanted to push sales of the PS5, they should have made The Last of Us 2 and probably Ghost of Tsushima PS5 games. That I think that would have been enough to drive people to buy that console. The fact that they didn't, and they're both PS4 games, I'm thankful for, but like those would be system sellers, in my opinion. And it's kind of a surprise to see them release such gigantic games essentially at the tail end of the PS4's life. Like it'll be around for a while. PS4 is not going anywhere, but like the fact that they're announcing the new system this year and it's coming this holiday season, it's like it's kind of a surprise that they didn't just wait and say
Right. I mean, especially because like they
Probably
just
do
released.
optimized or bonus content versions of those games for those
Right.
systems would be my guess.
Yeah, it'll be a
Yeah,
Game of the Year edition of Last of Us 2 on PS5, and
Yep.
Get the soundtrack
It'll
or
have-
whatever.
those crazy hair details that you guys were talking about before. Because you can't already see Ellie's every strand of her hair,
Right.
because it looks, that game is marvelous looking.
PlayStation won't sound like a helicopter either, so
Yeah, the bonus content for Last of Us 2 on PS5 is that it won't sound like your entire house is on fire. That's the bonus feature for it. Cool. So next gen, maybe next time. That's going to be our tagline.
maybe
for it.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. Next gen, maybe next time.
Maybe next time.
Speaking of next gen and Xbox trying to get people hyped up for next gen, they recently did their Xbox Game Showcase. They highlighted some new games. They highlighted a lot of stuff on xCloud. There's been also some rumors about Xbox Live potentially either merging with their Game Pass.
It's going Game Pass Ultimate. Yeah, you can't even buy the memberships anymore.
Becoming just free. Which as a, I think, 13-year Xbox Live member that's paid them like $10 a month for every month for the last 13 years, I feel like I should get something for that. Some kind of a plaque.
You'll get a badge in your account probably, like unlocked it
Or
a reward.
Maybe that's enough for them.
Will go up.
free games. I don't know. I've gotten probably like 100 free games from that service, anyways. But
That's true.
Well, they're not free though. But anyway.
Yeah,
well,
you're paying for them. That's true.
That's true. Well, thanks, Joe. Thanks for but Halo announced. Fable,
So true,
Joe's big game. What were some of the other titles that they announced? The new Forza game.
Yeah, I think so. Hold on. I really don't even know. All I know is the Halo one and all the irritation that's kind of surrounded that about the graphics on it being.
People are shitting on the graphics for Halo. Not that Halo was ever a graphics powerhouse to begin with. I mean,
yeah, I think that it's just like E3 2018. The in-game engine footage looked miraculous. You know, like you're. I can't hear you, Joe.
Oh, sorry. I was just cracking wise saying that there's no more Star Wars films coming out, so people need to complain.
True.
Just for toxic Star Wars fans.
All right, so there was Avowed.
Not sure.
There was Fable, Forza Motorsport.
It's pronounced
Tetris Effect Connected. Oh, Tetris Effect Connected. Destiny 2 Beyond Light.
Yep.
Bellon Wonderworld. Looks interesting. It seems like it's looks like Sonic characters or something. Everwild, The Outer Worlds.
Looks good.
Yep. Tell me why.
Current gen console or current gen game.
Psychonauts 2. I think arguably that's could be considered. I think a big title. I know Psychonauts 1 is pretty cult. It kind of put Double Fine on the map. I think a little. Crossfire X. Excuse me. Dragon Quest 11S. It's gone the way of the iPhone.
That's the first time Dragon Quest is going to be on a non-Nintendo console, right?
Yeah. That's well, no. Dragon Quest 8, I think at least was on PlayStation.
Dragon Quest,
if I recall correctly, yeah, Dragon Quest. Stalker 2, The Gunk, Phantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis, The Medium, and Sable and Fable. Okay. So yeah, that's the list.
So
at least the one that I found.
Their big guns are obviously going to be Fable and Halo and Forza, which those are great games. Obviously,
Avowed, yes. No, that's supposed to be like their
Avowed,
Skyrim.
yeah.
That's their. It's the people that make Outer Worlds. That's their Skyrim killer.
Okay.
Fusroda.
Really, you're gonna be a Skyrim killer, right? Like
that's not gonna happen.
You guys
just
have bought
like,
that game.
Just like every MMO is a WoW killer until it isn't.
Right. Until it runs out of subscribers after 3 years. Yeah.
Or content.
So from this list, Joe,
sure
I know you're hyped for Fable, and we don't need to go into that again. I've never been a big Halo guy personally. I played a little bit of Halo 3 on 360 when that was a big deal. I played a little bit of the first two just kind of randomly, but that never was enough to make me run out and buy an Xbox before. It wasn't why I played Xbox before. Forza, I'm not a sports sim guy, although I appreciate that, and I've heard a lot of good things about Forza, but it's just not a game that, like, again, I'm gonna run out. I'm not a gearhead.
Are you saying Forza?
Forza.
Are you putting is there a T in there?
It's Italian, bro.
It's Italian. Familia.
Got it.
Cool.
I was like, do we have another Ubisoft thing here? Is that what this
I
is?
am correct on this one. This actually
I believe you.
It was actually a tweet from, and the only reason I know this is because they tweeted it out. Like they tweeted out that we want everybody to know it's pronounced Forza, and they like the emphasis on it. Like, and I was like, that's funny. I like that. But there wasn't anything that really blew my skirt up. I mean, a couple of the games that Joe just listed off are current gen games. Outer Worlds is on the Switch. It's not even like
it's getting a graphics boost.
Sure, I'm sure it is, but that's also not a graphically intense game as it is. Like, so
yeah.
What the hell is
there's
do?
Also an expansion, I think, too. Was maybe also part of it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think so. Destiny,
It's coming out for everything besides
I
Switch.
love Destiny. I haven't played it in over a year at this point, but I love Destiny. If they were going to say Destiny 3 was coming out tomorrow, I'd probably pre-order it.
Sure.
But that's also a current gen game. I just don't know why that would get me.
There's a new expansion, I think, too, for this.
It is. It's Dying Light.
Beyond Light.
Beyond Light.
Beyond Light Stasis, yeah.
And even so,
Dying Light's a different game that has
similarities to Halo and Destiny being the fact that they both were Bungie, titles originally.
Sure.
Is just like it's kind of like two of the same thing, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm not saying that the Halo and Destiny are the same, because they're not, but I'm just saying like the similarities between the two. Yeah. Like first person shooters about dudes in heroic space armor, or like running around shooting aliens. Like there's the similarities are palpable. I'm just saying, like
Mass Effect, the game online.
Aside from xCloud and being able to play those games on my phone with an Xbox controller, like what am I really getting excited about from Microsoft? Like, we talked last episode about the potential of them buying WB Games and how that would be a huge boon for them, because they would have some real exclusive powerhouses that weren't Halo and Forza and Gears of War, but and they've only released Fable once every decade at this point, so it's not like that is a title that they're cranking out a bunch of games for. So does Microsoft have a problem with a lack of content right now? Do they have a lack of games on either this gen or next gen to really stay afloat in the console wars?
I don't know if I agree with that part, because I don't think anybody's really producing a bunch of brand new shiny exclusive stuff.
PlayStation would tell you differently. They just
you're
two gigantic games.
I'm saying next gen wise. Current
gen,
sure. I would agree with that, right? Especially in the last couple months, that's been pretty obvious. Halo has the opportunity to be a big one, and especially if they do their multiplayer stuff, which is supposedly going to be a free to play thing that they toss in there. Which will have a battle pass, I'm sure, and whatever other cosmetic monetization model they can throw into it. But if they'll probably do something similar to what Call of Duty does. Maybe they'll introduce some sort of like a Warzone type of mode for Halo, which would be unique for Halo, and bring it a little bit more attention and just make it a little different from the other ones.
Halo Battle Royale kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, realistically, that could totally be a thing that would be popular if they do it right. So, because I mean, Halo still has a big following, and I think that the problem or the struggle that it has is, while they've already come back and said like, hey, we understand that you guys didn't like the graphics as much and you didn't like this, that, or the other thing, it's still not done yet. So we're going to improve on a lot of those things. So they have been vocal in addressing that stuff, which was nice. I think that it still just has, like, it's not far away from launch. And this is the stuff that we saw. It doesn't bode well for day one launch on it, which I think scares a lot of people. Because
is Halo going to be current gen?
I think so. It's supposed to be on Game Pass. Well, again, yeah, Microsoft said that everything that comes out for the next series will be available on current gen for at least a certain point. So yeah, it'll be
Halo Infinite is supposed to launch this holiday season.
Yeah, so it'll be available on Xbox One X or Xbox One and the new stuff. But again, like their Game Pass Ultimate is going to have xCloud as a part of it. That was also discussed during this. And while you say it's not, pro-consumer because it's a subscription base, when I say that, I'm saying in comparison to every other game streaming service that's available like that, it is light years it is a much, much better value.
It's better than like PlayStation Plus.
It's better than PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus or whatever it's called.
More considerate.
Plus is their online service.
Correct.
So
they have 300 and almost 400 games in the library. And as brand new games come out, they're added in. Like PlayStation takes several months to add in their new releases to that, if that soon.
Yeah, their library is pretty stale by comparison.
Yeah, so when I say pro-consumer, like, yeah, I get it's a subscription while it's meant to make money. In comparison to the rest of the industry, it shits on everybody else. It's way beyond.
Right, Stadia and that's basically the entire model of Stadia.
Yeah, but Stadia has such underwhelming performance. Like its latency issues are really bad. It touted 4K at 60 FPS like day one, and like maybe you'll get 1080p at 60 FPS if you have a 100 megabyte connection. And like
Not only are games old, but they don't even play that well.
yeah,
Google Stadia.
yeah, they like it's really unfortunate how they launched, but everybody else in the space seems to be doing pretty well. Microsoft obviously is still in beta for xCloud and stuff, but like it's super promising. And again, they've been very generous. If you don't want to call it consumer, that's fine. With their game library and what they're adding to it, and for the price, like it's really really awesome.
Well, you need like a powerful phone to be able to play, like, because I assume most people see the appeal of playing these games on their phones.
Well, I think that's basically the point. I mean, I remember this was I think a year ago at this point, but I was reading something about I believe it was Stadia or a very similar service where
You
you
have
could
unlimited data.
yeah well yeah for sure but the whole idea is that you're essentially being fed or streamed the content from a server. So you I mean ostensibly you could pull out your Chromebook that literally doesn't have a GPU and play Crisis. So
It's
so
yeah, the idea is it has like the most
right,
state of
it's
the art
supposed to be like
hardware.
an equalizer. Just
Exactly.
you
Sure,
you don't
you're
need to
pretty
go you don't need to go drop 3K on a laptop.
right.
Just
They
pull
get
out
the
whatever
back
you've got.
part of it, but there's still a component of the hardware being able to connect to that server at a rate fast enough. You want your screen to have
That's
refresh
that's
rates that will be
Sure.
good enough.
right. It's still two-way communication. So yeah, that's and for me that's kind of what I'm waiting to see how they how do they approach that and how do they really handle it.
Yeah, it has
Because
to be able to process the data in the window it's viewing. I mean,
right, there are phones on the market that are designed to be optimized for games, and then there are phones that are designed to be
the
optimized for other
Asus
shit.
ROG phone,
You know what's that?
the Asus ROG phone is just like a ridiculous.
So like,
It's a powerhouse.
so it's like back to the crisis argument. Like, is there a phone that people are going to want to have?
I kind of can't believe that even exists. Like that's just
It's silly, but it's like
it is.
holy shit, man.
Yeah. Oh
It's
no,
a
for sure.
beast.
Yeah.
It's so unnecessary when you look at all like the attachments and stuff, but it's like, all right, you did it.
Then are they selling the little attachment things that you can
Oh yeah.
like put the controller onto your phone to like be able to play?
They have its own controller. They have a fan back plate to keep it cool.
Who's out there going like, you know what I want? I want mobile games. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Buy a Switch, homie. They're $300. Like,
right?
What?
But your Switch can't play.
I don't know.
Yeah. I get it. Well, right now you can't really effectively play any of them well.
I need to play Farmville, and I need to take it really seriously. So.
To where I have a freaking blower on the back of my phone, keeping it cool while I'm playing Crisis.
Daddy, my food's too hot. Hold on. There you go.
Attached to my phone so I can play Mahjong. That's the way to do it. So going back, like Steve, I'm gonna point it to you. Is there anything that blew your skirt up from the game showcase?
I think that I take it with a grain of salt, but I think Halo looked cool. I'll probably buy it or get it on Game Pass or whatever. And I'm sure I'll play it. It won't be something that I play day one probably, unless when it comes out I hear just such amazing things that it's like, dude, you have to play this. But it won't be one that I'm, downloading it first to find out. What was it called? The people that made Outriders, the Avowed game.
Yeah.
That I saw.
Obsidian is the developer.
Yeah, I saw the gameplay trailer for it. It looks super sick. It's very Skyrim-esque.
It definitely looks cool.
It looks cool. So
I'll
I'm excited for
second
that one. Yeah. Beyond that, no, I'm not a Forza guy, whatever. Those games kind of bother me. I don't like being confined to tracks. I like games that I can just drive around and do whatever the hell. Like Need for Speed style and stuff like that.
I agree.
My cousin is buying like the whole gaming setup for for like iRacing and stuff like that, I'm sure he'll buy it and he'll play the crap out of it.
iRacing?
Yeah, he does. He's getting into the iRacing where he's buying like I think it's Fantech or something like that. The direct drive steering wheel and stuff like that. It's basically he's buying the inside of a car and playing a game on his on the computer, and it's like real feedback from the steering wheel. If you hit a wall, like you're gonna break your damn wrists if you have it turned up all the way. Like,
Talk about a crash.
Super intense. But yeah, he's getting that whole setup. So those games are his jam. I'm sure he'll play that on day one. But for me, beyond that, and Fable, like I'm excited for Fable. If it's available on Game Pass and stuff like that, I'll certainly play that probably within the first week that it comes out, because I've been excited to play a game like that in a long time. Fable 1 was, when I was younger, that was one of my favorite games of all time. If I had a bad day, I would log in and just obliterate a town and go full dark side.
Dude, no, same. I remember
had 11,000 kids.
My friends and I, we were like looking forward to it launching, and then it did, and we were just like about it. And then it had 2 sequels, and they were both pretty good. And yeah, it just I'm super hyped. But I mean, obviously, Avowed looks cool. I'm intrigued by Tell Me Why, because I really liked Life is Strange, and this is another Don't Nod title. So I'm gonna probably at least look at it, if not, buy it and play it. It's episodic too, so I mean, you can always play episode 1, and if it's lame, then just don't buy anymore. But I'm gonna probably definitely check that out. And then Psychonauts 2, I'm gonna follow it as well, because that game is it's a kind of a cult legend release, the first Psychonauts. So I'm gonna definitely follow it.
Yeah. Star Wars. I just put it in the chat, but Star Wars Squadron comes out. I think it's Squadrons. I think is what it's called. Comes out October 2nd, my birthday. So I'm super stoked for that one. It's basically like the old school TIE Fighters game and the graphical elements from the newer Battlefront 2, and like the old school mechanics and everything, just super optimized. I've watched a bunch of gameplay on YouTube for that. It looks super awesome. I think it's going to launch for $40. It's not even like a full $70 or $60 release title. But that game looks super, super cool. So I'm excited for that. It wasn't in the Xbox showcase, but whatever.
Right.
Throwing it out there.
Is that coming to all consoles?
I think it's coming.
I
think it's coming to everything. I don't think it's coming to the Switch actually, but it should be coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
No, it's definitely not coming to Switch. And I heard the reason why I know that is because there was a lot of speculation as to why it wasn't, because it's more or less a spiritual successor to Rogue Squadron, which was a pretty big 64 title that got a lot of pull. Speaking of Star Wars games, I know it's not related to the showcase, but Steve, did you pick up Episode 1 Racer on PS4 and or Switch?
The pod racing game?
Yeah, it's
actually no. I did. I pre-ordered it on the Switch. I didn't know it came out yet though. So
it's bad.
I'll have to download it. It's bad.
I bought it.
Is it just as bad as it used to be?
It is the same game. It is not a graphical upgrade in any way, shape. It is literally a straight port of the 64 game with
pod racing.
New controls.
What?
Yeah, it's bad.
It's great, like Sebulba and like Anakin and like
no new pack, no new content. It's a 64 game on the Switch. No online multiplayer, just local multiplayer.
So Wizard.
God damn it. You saw in Big Doodoo this time.
Yeah. It's working.
God.
So dumb. Goddamn Episode 1.
Now you have to take your medication.
The version of that game was incredible. I played that. I worked at the movie theater.
Which one?
Chandler Mall. The Episode 1 arcade pod racing game. You sat in a big like fake pod racer, and like you had the controls, so you can shift back and forth for each of the pods. That game was legit. I played that pretty much every break I got working at the movie theater. I spent way too much money because it was like $1 a play. So I would I was only making, $13 an hour or whatever working in the movie theater. I'd take $1 of that to go put it into the friggin' thing on my breaks.
You should have
Getting
just
bothered by
opened
little,
up the token machine and
kids.
just played. And I'm testing the pod racing game
Yeah, that's not pod racing game, guys. Come back later.
every day.
But that game was great. But that just could be nostalgia talking. Anyways.
I feel like a lot of those games that get re-released though are nostalgia because some of those games were mechanically trash.
I think it's 100% nostalgia fuel. Yeah, 100%.
And then
the Jedi Academy game, like it plays the same as it did with Kyle Katarn and all that.
Yeah, but those games are dope.
Yeah, they're fun, but mechanically, I was like, oh, it's still booty.
Awesome. I've always wanted to drive a truck, it's just not
awesome.
Speaking of games that haven't aged well, nostalgia, one of my favorite Star Wars games ever is probably still Shadows of the Empire on 64. And I bought it when I got a 64, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I picked it up just because I was like, I have to own this game. This is like a seminal game from my childhood. And I played it for like 5 minutes, and I was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. I shut it off because every minute I was playing that game, I was ruining my memories of that game, of enjoying the game. I was like, this game is dog shit. I'm turning this off because I don't want to further taint how I felt about playing this game before.
Yeah,
I'll just go read the comic book instead.
I've definitely done that with some games like that I played entirely too much growing up. Like Star Wars Galaxies was like my jam for years, and then now it's obviously a dead game, but it's on emulators online, and I go back in there and I'm like, oh god, this, like I love those communities. The communities that have the emulators are awesome, and the game is still very nostalgic and fun. But man, does it not play well in comparison to games today, like especially when you're just used to them. One of my favorite games of all time, though, that they did like a PC or sorry a phone port Star Wars wise was Knights of the Old Republic. And even on mobile, like I just loved playing that game. So if you've never played it, you should definitely do that.
That game was damn near perfect, honestly.
Yeah, still is epic.
Okay.
I might get disbarred from this podcast by saying this, but I tried Knights of the Old Republic I had it on 360. I got someone to loan me their Xbox copy because it was one of the few backwards compatible titles. Couldn't get into it. I really struggled. Because I basically heard, oh, it's Mass Effect in the Star Wars universe. And I was like, just sign me up.
Just know I hate you now.
I think it predated Mass Effect, but
it for sure.
It was BioWare. Yeah, it was the same folks. Yeah.
When I say it's Mass Effect and Star Wars universe, they're both BioWare titles. So it's like the logic was somebody handed me this game and said, if you like Mass Effect and you like Star Wars, then you need to play this game. And I couldn't get into it. Like I tried
story, yes.
And, struggled with it. Maybe I'll give it another shot one day, but I think I still have somebody actually. It's one of those games that somebody loaned me, and then I never asked for it back, and so I don't talk to that person anymore.
Sorry, random person that I haven't given this game back to.
Yeah, there's been a couple things.
Wow.
I don't talk to that person anymore. Like I worked with them at Best Buy, and
this was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
It's a solid game, man.
I'm friends with the person on Facebook, but like I think they live in Seattle now. I'm not gonna mail them a copy. Like if they really want it, they can ask for it back. Like
if
whoever you are, joke's on you. Jeff stole your game. So.
maybe I'll reach out to him now. Now that I feel guilty, I'm gonna tag him on Facebook.
Hey, dude, do you want this?
I'll mail it to you.
If you were expecting it to play like Mass Effect, that's probably why it didn't do it for you, because it doesn't play like Mass Effect. When it comes to character depth and story that you can have with the characters, it's like Mass Effect in that way. So if that part wasn't explained to you well, I could definitely see why you'd be like, eh.
All I'm gonna say is HK-47.
Yeah, meatbag.
There have been few Star Wars games in general that have really hooked me, which is why I've been hesitant to jump into Fallen Order and some of the other kind of stuff, just because like I think the last Star Wars game that I loved was probably we were just talking about it. It was an Xbox 360 title.
Force Unleashed.
Unleashed.
Yeah.
I think that was the
Force
last
Unleashed.
that really like hooked me. And even the second game, like I bought the second game, super hyped for it. And I played it maybe 20, 30 minutes.
Well, you were almost done with the game.
But I was just like, my thing with the second one was
man.
that it just like it felt too much like the first game. Like it was almost like this just feels like an expansion rather than something new and intriguing. And so
But you had Force Repulse, so you could go.
First one was fire though.
I remember, Steve, you and I worked together when Battlefront was coming out, and I was so hyped for Battlefront because I played the living daylights out of the Battlefront
original
games
ones
too, and I realized how bad I am at online shooters, and I was like, this is cool, but like, give me a story mode, you fuckers. Like, I mean, let me play something single player so I can enjoy Star Wars, not just getting murked by 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah. The Battlefront 2 has a story though, so there's that, and it looks really, really nice too. It's not.
I got Battlefront 2 on one of the. I think I either got it on Xbox or it was free on one of the consoles. But
yeah,
maybe I'll have to check it out. But
it's not the greatest story in the world, but it's a story.
I got some interesting topics for next episode, so I got some from this discussion. So it'll be a fun little
Star Wars games.
Sick. Star Wars.
We just named them all.
Toxic fandom that we love and can't quit.
Like a crippling addiction.
Yes. Give me money.
I don't like how darkly you stared into the screen. So I think that's it, guys. Is there anything else we want to chat about before we end this week's episode?
No, this is. Yeah, sorry, we kept everybody for an hour and 45 minutes here. Whew.
I'll have to ask Jenna to trim some of the fat. So that's our show for this week. Once again, where you can find us, moderngamer.com is where we write all of our content, and we have links to all of our ancillary places where you can watch our podcast and or listen to our podcast. Again, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Play or Google Podcasts, we're on all the other places, YouTube, for where you can find our podcast. So find Steve on Twitter at Dartswall. Find me on Twitter at Geoff. You can find Joe not on anything because he prefers to hide in the shadows because only the shadow knows.
You can
I am
find
the terror
Joe
that flaps in the night.
find Joe on this podcast every other week.
If you do want to find and follow him, maybe that will encourage him to get on Twitter. He is some Joe you know on Twitter. So if you want to find him, you can find him there and follow him and give him a couple likes and say, "What's up, dude?
Saw, dude.
Sick shirt.
Sick shirt."
I hate you.
Joe uses his Twitter so little he doesn't even have an avatar on his Twitter. He just likes
Hell yeah.
It's just a blank face.
It's true. It's true.
It's not even like the modified one where it's like doing this or anything. It's just the default.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, it's like the white silhouette on a blue circle.
Hell yeah.
So I have 2 topics for next episode. My third topic is why isn't Joe on Twitter?
I need to go find a picture of MySpace Tom and just set that just to eternally troll Jeff.
Joe doesn't understand social media so much that he thinks that nobody else on Twitter has Tom as their Twitter API because like
I mean,
damn, dude.
It's been around since 2009, Joe. There's plenty of people on there that have it. So I'm sorry, 2006. So cool. That's our episode. Thanks very much for stopping by. We appreciate you all and have a
follow, subscribe, all that stuff.
Go out.
Yeah.
Go out. I hope.
Subscribe, comment.
Share with your friends.
Smash that bell icon and turn on notifications.
There you go. Yup. All right.
Cool.
Get her done.
See you later, everybody.
For this week. Bye.
Bye-bye.